I grew up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is in North Idaho. I currently live in Eugene, Oregon. So the culture in which I grew up was extremely influenced by evangelical Christianity. The culture in which I currently live is very influenced by the sort of new age. There's a lot more spiritual diversity in general in Eugene, and there's more spiritual diversity in Coeur d'Alene than when I grew up. It's like one of the fastest growing smallish towns in the United States. So just by token of there being so many more people, there is greater diversity in almost all ways. But my point is that a lot of people sort of think that evangelical Christianity and the New Age couldn't be more different, that they're almost sort of ideologically opposite. This is not true at all, in my opinion. I actually think they're extremely similar, which, frankly, I think accounts for why it's not that uncommon to swing from the first to the second, from being raised Christian, which I wasn't exactly, but I was raised in the culture, to being a part of the New Age, which I'm very much not. But I see it everywhere around me. What they have in common, in my view, is a lot of things, but primarily they're both very spiritually individualistic, especially around the concept of deserving. In the context of evangelical Christianity, there is this concept called the prosperity gospel, which I imagine most of you are familiar with, but it is the idea that if you are sufficiently good, and especially if you are sufficiently faithful, if you are specifically a sufficiently good rule follower by evangelical Christian standards, you will be materially rewarded in this life by the man himself, God. And this is an extremely common belief. Yes. And then, of course, there are other forms of deserving. The whole concept of heaven and hell depends totally on the concept of individualistic deserving. That you do good deeds and you follow the Ten Commandments, etc., such that you become sufficiently impressive to God so that he gives you a ticket to heaven. And this is tremendously motivating for people, and I see why. Eternal damnation? Wow. Wow. What an incredibly intimidating thing to believe is actually real. Anyhow, in the context of the New Age, the concept of the law of attraction is extremely common. And the law of attraction is almost the exact same thing, except you can replace the word God with the universe. So essentially, you raise your vibe so that you have just a very high vibe. You have an extraordinarily high vibe, and this causes you to deserve things to come to you in a material sense in your life. This is the spooky spiritual means by which you get rich. Yes, especially white people in the first world are very good at this, I've noticed. So these concepts are almost exactly the same. In the prosperity gospel, you are sufficiently faithful and you are materially rewarded. under the law of attraction, you are sufficiently highly vibed, and you are materially rewarded. This I find so much worse than not true. I certainly think it's not true, but it's so much worse than that in the sense that this belief motivates people to conceive of themselves in what I consider a just incredibly incoherent way. And it leads them to perceive other people in an incredibly incoherent way. Essentially, it causes people to view themselves and others as free-floating individuals who have what I view as an insanely higher degree of control in life than they actually have. So the side effects of this, the side effects of all egotistical, individualistic perception are these two very, very, very common perceptions in this culture of pride and shame. So if things go well for you, if you're a quite lucky person, and especially if you're a quite privileged person in various ways, if you believe either of these things, you're going to believe that you deserve that because of your goodness. If you are quite unlucky or quite underprivileged and you believe either of these things, you're going to perceive yourself as deserving it also. And you are going to blame yourself for your misfortune. At the same time, like I said, this causes you to view other people in this way as well. So you are led to praise people who are lucky and privileged, and you are prompted to judge and blame people who are unlucky. Sometimes when I advocate against this perspective, people think that I am against responsibility or something like this. That is not true at all. I don't believe that, and I don't think most people do either. I think this is just a conversation that is not often had. I do not believe that we need punishment and reward, especially not divine punishment and reward, in order to be motivated to be responsible. I think that is such a shame. It's such a shame that that we are led to believe that by disembodied spirituality, that we are led to believe that we need this kind of carrot and the stick, and we will just run rife and be terribly destructive and immoral without the carrot and the stick. I don't believe that at all. I believe that if you are sufficiently connected and sufficiently loved and resourced and sufficiently well, you will feel intrinsically responsible. I'm remembering this really interesting conversation I had years ago with a couple of roommates of mine who were evangelicals. And at the time, I was doing a form of work that was service work. I was employed doing service work. And I would volunteer a day a week as well. And I'm not saying that to brag. You'll see why I'm saying this. And they sat me down one day and said, Desa, we actually can't believe that you don't believe in heaven and hell. You must believe in heaven and hell because you are motivated to do these things. Why would you do these things if not motivated by the belief in heaven and hell? And I found this an extremely odd and also very deeply clarifying question. I was like, I just care. I just actually care about these things. And I don't at all, to any degree, believe that the fact that I care about doing service work and volunteering in gardens, I don't believe that valuing those things comes to me because I am better than anyone else. I don't believe that it's a moral or ethical thing. In fact, I think that this is a whole essay that I will write at some point, but I think that it would benefit us tremendously, actually, to transcend the concept of individual morality at all. Anyway, I believe that the reason that I am motivated to do those things is because I am very lucky that I can perceive their importance. It's like perceiving anything else. Like if you stub your toe, you're likely to go, ouch, and tend to it in some way, right? And basically, I think that all of us, especially in this culture, or so many of us, have our connection to our perception, to our sensitivity, has been broken in elaborate ways, especially by disembodied spirituality and many other things in culture, such that it's very difficult for us to perceive those things directly. But that's what I believe it is. I don't believe that we need a little person with a whip inside our heads driving our bodies around, like, be good. You know what I mean? That is such a Christian idea. That is such a Christian idea. And I do not mean to slander all forms of Christianity. The word Christianity means almost nothing at this point in history. Yes. Yeah, I just see an incredible proliferation of compulsive rule forming and rule following around me, and have my whole life in both of these contexts, right? Well, and I have lived many other places as well. But the two places that I have spent the most of my life are North Idaho and Western Oregon. Many people are like, these cultures could not be more different, and aesthetically, they are very different. However, this sort of carrot and stick, prosperity gospel, law of attraction, individual morality, individual deserving thread is extraordinarily prominent throughout this entire culture. It's sort of propagated in different forms in different places and amongst different people. But the underlying thread is very much present. And I think it's absolutely not true. So this has been my blab about that. Thank you for coming.